Hey there, Shua here with another drawing tutorial, and this is by request, and we are talking today about drawing the human face or the head. So a diagram like this will teach you sort of how all the parts of the face line up if someone is facing directly at you, but how often are you really going to be able to view somebody in that way. I'm going to bring in this beat up mannequin head here, and this will give you a little bit more of an idea of how an object happens in 3 dimensions. So specifically the front view as it turns becomes a 3/4 view. You start to notice that some shadow hits these surfaces and some light hits these surfaces. So light hitting the cheekbone, then the shadows start to happen here. As you rotate, you'll notice that those surfaces start to catch the light, and so now instead of having shadow on the bridge of the nose, you start to have light on the bridge of the nose. And as it rotates around, that light hitting it sort of defines the shape. So here's a photograph of a fairly famous guy, and then I have here kind of a rough sketch of same fellow, and you can tell this picture will give you a lot of 3-dimensional information. Okay, and then when you break it down into a drawing, you're going to get a little bit less information unless you keep working and working and building and building and building until you get this kind of photorealistic look. However, it is enough to note that this nose, for instance, is a 3-dimensional shape. These cheekbones, these eyes, the eye sockets, the forehead, the whole entire head, the hair is resting on a 3-dimensional object. And I'm going to try and break down this kind of drawing in a way that sort of makes sense, hopefully, in a 3-dimensional way. And since I'm a lefty, I'm going to put the photograph here, and I'm going to draw here. So the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to think about the whole kind of big shape of the top portion of the head, and I'm going to think about that as a sphere. So I'm going to draw a nice big circle, and I'm going to notice that right along here is kind of the midpoint of the sphere, or if he's in a 3/4 view, kind of the eyes being right along the middle of that area. Okay, so eye here, somewhere around in there, and then the nose is going to end up coming off of that kind of center line, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And then down here where the chin is, I just sort of kind of build that in, and I know that the jawbone is somewhere around in here, and the ear and the jawbone kind of line up. Okay, and so a little bit of anatomy will help to go a long way. And then I know that the hair sort of goes around the direction of the head, so you can tell here it's kind of falling down. It starts here and kind of comes down. Right around in here it sort of curls and wisps, but it's still going around the shape of the head. So no matter what direction it is, if you can understand or think about the surface that it's wrapping around, this hair is not just going up, it's going up and over and kind of disappearing as it goes into the distance away from the viewer. So just that little bit of knowledge can sometimes help you know where the hair is supposed to go without even having to study the little tiny details of the hair. And then this hair is kind of sticking out. It's very flat, 2-dimensional, you know, shooting this way, so it becomes a little bit more akin to just a 2D representation. So I'm going to kind of figure that the nose is going to be around in here and the mouth is going to be around in here. And you can always refer back to drawings such as this to kind of help you know your distances. And there is a tutorial on this that I've shared, so you can get that information, and I'll put a link to that tutorial in here for you. Now, what's going on underneath the skin is very important. Okay, so we have a skull happening here, and it's got some eye sockets. It's got like an opening in the skull for the nose. You've got the teeth that will happen somewhere around in here, and then you've got, you know, obviously the cheekbones. And some of these things are just so universal that you can already kind of see them underneath the skin. Like you can tell right here where the shadow and the light areas start to meet, you can tell that that's just where that the cheekbone is. And so you can kind of draw that in without ever even studying Einstein. You just know that that's what's going on with the human face. Same thing here where this is catching light. That's a cheekbone that's happening underneath there, and these wrinkles kind of are blocking the light, so they curl around a cheekbone. They're not just round for no reason. They're wrapping around a three-dimensional object. Same thing with the eyes. A lot of times we think of the eyes as football shapes, but they're not just football shapes. What they are really are spheres inside of an eye socket. Okay, and so they very much will be in correspondence with the angle or the direction of the sphere of the whole head. So this line is going to correspond very much with the line of how the head is facing. Now the eyeball within there can shift, right? And so we see that his eye is looking kind of over in this direction and over in this direction. So you sort of, by having that sphere, you kind of know your access points, and that really will help your eyes not to look cross-eyed or funky if you can kind of understand where it's coming from. Also, the shape of that eyelid, it wraps around a sphere, so it should take some of the guesswork out of where should my eyelid go? Okay, so, and eventually I'm going to push this to black so it becomes a little bit easier to see. So far I haven't even worried about the details of if this looks like Einstein. I'm more just worried about the geometry. Am I getting the geometry right? I haven't worried about the wrinkles in his skin or any of those details. I'm really holding off on that. And when I was learning how to draw in this way, it was a tough transition to get to a point where I trusted this method more than my old method of doing things. Alright, so that kind of wraps up this tutorial on how to draw the face using three-dimensional shape of objects. Thanks for watching.